Okay, so aliens, intelligent life besides human beings, do they exist? Well, the first time this question arose was in July 1947 in Roswell. You probably all heard of that. So basically, the first week of July in 1947, a rancher sees a flying object coming down, kind of on fire, crashes into his ranch. He reports that to the sheriff's office, and then they report it to the local air base, and they inspect it. And then July 8th, in the newspaper, it says, big on the front page, Roswell Army Airfield captures flying saucer on ranch in Roswell region. And that quickly goes onto the national scale with newspapers around the nation printing that. And everybody's like, oh yeah, whoa, aliens exist, Martians, this is crazy. But the next day, July 9th, on the front page, it says, never mind, officers say disc is weather balloon. So that's the whole controversy of Roswell, and that leads into my whole claim, which is like going with the question of whether or not we are alone in the universe. So, yeah, my claim is intelligent life can and does exist elsewhere in the universe. Talk about three things: the size of the universe and how many planets there are, make it extremely probable that other little planets exist as well, just like Earth. So the second point, water exists. Well, there's proof of water that exists elsewhere in our solar system. And the third, the Drake equation, which I'll go over when I get to it. Okay, so the first thing, size of the universe. Okay, so NASA says that basically for every star, well, for every two stars, one star has a planet or planets. So 50% of stars will have planets. So since there are like 200 billion stars in the Milky Way galaxy, it means there are about 100 billion planets in our galaxy. And then take the fact that there are at least 100 billion galaxies in the universe, that leaves a number that I don't even know how many planets there are. It's just an incredible amount. Okay, so scientists at NASA every day since a few years ago have been discovering Earth-like planets, and so far they discovered over 2,700. And these are planets that exist in the habitable zones of their stars, and they're kind of similar in size to Earth. What is the habitable zone? That's the region around a star, the orbit, that's in a perfect region or somewhat perfect region for where liquid water might exist, and for where conditions for life will be favorable. And so finding all these habitable planets shows that maybe Earth and our position in our solar system isn't so special because so many other planets are in the habitable zone. Even Steve Howell, one of the scientists working on the NASA Kepler mission project, said that it is no longer a question of if we will find a true Earth analog, but a question of when. Okay, second, water. As far as life goes on Earth, we know that you need water for life to exist and thrive. And in our solar system, there are a lot of examples of where water can exist outside of Earth. NASA has discovered water on Mars, in ice blocks on Mercury, on Jupiter's moons, Callisto and Europa, Saturn's moon, Enceladus, and they even say that Venus once had water. So water is essential to life as we know it. Life on Earth can exist without water, so knowing that water is somewhat common in the universe, given our solar system as an example, Earth having water maybe isn't so special, and water is pretty common, which is needed for life to exist. Okay, and the Drake equation. Frank Drake, a NASA scientist, in 1961 developed this equation that's widely accepted by the scientific community, basically to calculate or to estimate how many intelligent species exist besides us in our galaxy. And so it's this long equation is basically like, the fraction of, the rate of how many stars per year form times the fraction of how many stars the planets, which is half, times the number of Earth-like planets per solar system, and then times how many of those planets have life and how many of those planets with life develop intelligent life. Now, since we don't know the fraction of how many planets develop intelligent life, because we're the only intelligent life that we know of, we can't have an exact answer, but Frank Drake used his own equation to estimate that there are 10,000 in our galaxy alone. But an exact thing that we can get from this, if we just take out the intelligent part, statistically in our galaxy, hundreds of thousands of life-bearing planets should exist. Okay, so to conclude, so why do I think aliens or intelligent species besides us exist in the universe? Well, there are a number of habitable planets being discovered, and so many being discovered more and more every day. And since water is so common with our solar system as an example, we know that most of those habitable planets will have water. And really all those habitable planets with water need is the time that Earth has had, 4.5 billion years. And yeah, given the time, I don't see why planets like that will develop complex life like us.
All right, you do have a claim. It's divided into multiple parts. That's a little bit awkward. There's some layout of the secondary issues, although those points are not really expressed as claims. As you got to the first point, it's really just a signpost and not a claim. Same thing is true on the third point as well. When you get to that third point, for instance, on the Drake equation, you kind of describe what the statistical information is, but not how those statistics were arrived at, why it means what you say it means, and you say that it seems widely accepted. Well, who says it's widely accepted? What standard do we have for evaluating that except your say-so? So without having read any of this information, we don't have enough context on it to be able to judge it, and you have to provide us, I think, with a little bit more. The best argument that you had concerned the number of planets that were Earth-like, although I think you need a source on that, and the issue of water being necessary. Although there's a presupposition on that, I don't think that anybody is going to doubt that one. The question then becomes, how likely is life just because of the mere presence of water? Maybe that's what the Drake equation ultimately would tell us, but I don't know that from putting that together. I got to say, frankly, you sound a little bit bored while you're presenting the argument, and at the end, in the summary, it sounded like you got a little bit more forceful, a little bit more direct about the point that you were trying to make, until right at the end when you just turn it back into a question and say, well, why wouldn't it be? Why wouldn't there be life? And I think you need to be a little bit more assertive than that. All right.